Chucker, eh?
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Sharp Hand Path channel, where I usually just do martial arts related stuff and me and my family's martial arts journey and little snippets here and there from what we've learned from Iron Leaf and a little bit of what I've learned from Goju Ryu Karate. You can actually see my karate gi up there. It says Okinawan Goju Ryu. This is not the background that I wanted for these videos that I'm going to be doing here regarding martial arts and kung fu movies and reviews and stuff like that in between my actual training sessions for this channel. But here we are. I couldn't get the Kier flag up there properly. I wanted to actually have it by, you can look over here, my gis, and I wanted this Kier gi in the middle, so it was like the three gis lined up, the white, the green, and the black. The white obviously being for the karate, the green for my at-home family training solo sessions, and the black for Iron Leaf mixed martial arts training. So unfortunately that plan didn't really come to fruition for this channel, just because it didn't look right and I couldn't get the flag set up properly in a way that I liked. And there is too much of the shelf poking through and then like the other side. Either way, just know that this was not the background that I wanted for these kung fu and martial arts movies stuff. So I figured I would just wear the gi to differentiate it from when I do my main channel's videos, the Black Metal Rebellion. So yeah, with all that house cleaning out of the way, I've again decided to do some filler videos on this channel while I'm not filming my training. I'm going to be going through my martial arts and kung fu film collections and kind of giving my thoughts on them and maybe doing collection updates whenever I get new martial arts or kung fu films. So I decided the best way to show off the collection is to do the main martial artists that I have a collection of so far in alphabetical order. So the first one is Bruce Lee, and no, I'm not a super duper fangirl of Bruce Lee. I'm not like all about it, they can do no wrong, but I did get introduced to Bruce Lee at a very young age, so I had to go and get the Bruce Lee Golden Harvest box set with all of the films in it. The glare is not helping. Maybe you can see the titles there. There's the back of the box set. Now, this isn't the one that included the split with Golden Harvest and I think Warner Brothers. Yeah, Warner Brothers with Enter the Dragon. This just came on its own box set of the Golden Harvest films. Alright, so let's just go through the first one. The first one is the Big Boss, Bruce Lee's first film as an adult. I know he did some stuff early on as a kid, a movie actually called The Kid, I believe, as well. But let's talk about his martial arts adult films here, because I'm probably not going to track down the other ones. This is a very thin jewel case? Is that what you'd call the, I don't know, DVD case. There's the inside. Not too much going on. I dig all the blue. I don't know if blue's a Bruce Lee color, but it is what it is. Anywho, The Big Boss is actually one of my favorite Bruce Lee films. It's not the very best one in his collection. I feel like that's Fist of Fury, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people agree with me that it's Fist of Fury, but this one definitely is the second favorite one for me. The Big Boss just has a really neat, simple story. The main character is sent to this factory to work, and he's made a vow to not fight, but when his factory workers and friends start being mistreated and beat up and stuff, he decides to take action and help them out and fight against the big boss of the story and the corruption and the mistreatment of the employees. And that's another thing I forgot to mention is the cousin of Chang in this gets kidnapped and he has to save her from the thugs. the company's thugs. And all the fight scenes with Bruce Lee in it is really, really good. His kung fu is excellent, as you all know. So really shouldn't be a surprise that whenever Bruce Lee's on screen and doing his thing, it's electrifying. The other actors supporting him do an okay job. Some of them aren't the greatest. And the last fight of the film is pretty insane. But yeah, so that's his first film, The Big Boss. So glad I got I'm so glad I got all of them, but this one specifically I've always wanted to see. Next in the collection is Fist of Fury. This is a really weird cover. I feel like the box sets covers just aren't really the greatest. I prefer the original art. And there's the inside. Fist of Fury is a kind of a revenge redemption arc of Bruce Lee, his character in this, Chen Zhen, trying to figure out who killed his master and get revenge for it. Also trying to fight back against the oppressive Japanese forces that are occupying China. This film is pretty famous for the Bruce Lee versus the entire dojo of karate black belts, and then the fight with the main sensei of the dojo at the end, and of course his breaking of the Sick Man of China sign that was hung up there, or the sign outside of the one, I think, Japanese dojo where it said no dogs or Chinese allowed, which is like, wow. Comparing Chinese people to dogs, I don't know, that's fucked. So yeah, he smashes that one too. I like it. It's a really good, empowering, Chinese empowering movie, and I guess they really needed that back in the day after all the crap they suffered during that war and oppression and stuff like that from the occupancy of Japan and whatever. So it's a little political in here, but it's mostly just kind of a whodunit revenge story with Chen Zhen. And then at the end, I don't know whether they're supposed to imply that there's a sequel or not, depending on how you view the ending. But yeah, anyways, really good Bruce Lee film. Probably his best one, in my opinion. Big Boss being his second best film. Really good. Recommended watch for anyone who's into martial arts or kung fu. Next is Way of the Dragon. Again, I don't know what's up with this art. You know, the box art is not the greatest. This movie also isn't his best. The story is kind of weird too. Pretty much it's his family called on him to help one of their friends deal with this gang of idiots who are targeting their restaurant, and he's trying to get them to stop hiring them for protective services, which basically means if you don't pay us money, we're gonna fuck up your shop. So yeah, anyways, he goes there to help a family friend stop gangsters from messing with the restaurant, and he kicks their ass quite a bit. And when they can't shut down Bruce Lee's character, they hire a assassin in the form of Chuck Norris, and then that leads to the Temple of the Cats. There's so many cat shots in this Coliseum thing where they fight. It's unnecessary. I don't get the whole fascination or fixation on the cats there. It's kind of distracting from the fight with Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee. And the fight with Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, it's kind of underwhelming considering how credible both are and how top tier level martial artists they're supposed to be. If I gave it a ranking out of 10 for a fight sequence, I'd give it like a 5 or a 6. It could have been way better, but it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of Way of the Dragon, and but you know, with any Bruce Lee film, anytime he's on the screen, doing his martial arts. It's always a good time, but it's the story that kind of lacks for me, and the rest of the supporting characters are kind of meh. So this would probably be one of the lower Bruce Lee films for rewatchability. And another thing that annoys me with this is that to gain more money, the studios decided to retitle this Return of the Dragon after they put out Enter the Dragon, as if this was a sequel to Enter the Dragon, which it's fucking not. So good job for trying to milk Way of the Dragon and sucker people for more money. Yeah, this is not a sequel. Good try, Warner Brothers or whatever. But yep, Way of the Dragon. All right, now for one of my least favorite Bruce Lee films. This is Game of Death, and honestly, probably shouldn't have been made, or at least could have been made a little bit better, because Bruce Lee wasn't able to obviously film the entire thing and see his full vision of Game of Death like finished and see it to completion, unfortunately, because he died while this was getting made. I guess he was making this and Enter the Dragon at the same time. But yeah, so you get Bruce Lee for quite a bit of it. Most of the tower fight, he's in that. But the story leading up to the tower fight, he's not. They replace him with some other actor, and they do their best to cover the actor's face with like a motorcycle helmet for the most part, and then the most disgraceful bullshit attempt at trying to make you think that it's Bruce Lee when he's at the makeup table where he's like putting his makeup on for doing a movie or whatever. They put a cut out picture of Bruce Lee's face and they placed it over top the actor's face digitally. It looks terrible. It feels like a parody, and it's the most embarrassing, cringe, I don't know what job a studio could do to cover up the actor's face to make you think it's another actor. Like, it's shameful that they did that. Even for the technology back in the day, cutting out a picture of Bruce Lee's face and laying it over top digitally, and the character's talking, and then you see the picture trying to keep up with where the head's going, and it's doing a terrible job at that too. It's like, are you kidding me? What the hell? They definitely should have spent way more time and money trying to either do some digital effects to make it look slightly more like Bruce Lee, or did something in the story to make it so that the actor had to wear like a mask or something like that. I don't know, but a cutout picture over top of his face? Are you kidding me? Come on. You're a multi-billion dollar or multi-million dollar studio. You could have thought of something better than that. Anyways, the fight scenes in this with Bruce Lee, again, are pretty good. I feel like it's a bit of a stunt, or like a weird gimmicky thing where they made Bruce Lee fight Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like, because Bruce Lee's Chinese and he's short, so he's fighting a black guy that's like 8 feet tall. I can see the interest in that, and how it's like, oh, he's so short, yet he's fighting this really tall person. But like, I don't know. I feel like that's really cheesy and like a weird gimmicky thing. I don't know. I didn't like it. I don't like that he's fighting this big tall person. It's really weird and random, and seems like a neat idea conceptually if you're like a 12-year-old. But honestly, could have done without it. The thing that I liked actually about one of the fights in the tower scene though was that the guy that had the nunchucks was actually Dan Inosanto. So the real life Dan Inosanto was in that. So that was kind of neat. I like watching the Legend of Bruce Lee Chinese television series that's on Netflix, the 50 episode thing that lasts forever because each episode's like an hour long. So that's cool. I like Dan Inosanto's character in that, so it was neat to see that the real Dan Inosanto was in the tower fight scene. So that was cool, but the rest of the big studio cover-up for the rest of the movie and trying to make it into a full movie was bullshit. I just can't stand it. Alright, and the last movie in the box set is Game of Death 2. Yeah, Bruce Lee died during the making of Enter the Dragon and Game of Death 1. So, how the fuck did they make a Game of Death 2? Well, they used cut footage and B-roll from Game of Death 1 and some B-roll and shit from, I think, Way of the Dragon, and stuck that in here and reworked it somehow and tried to make that the story. Anyways, Game of Death 2, surprisingly, is better than Game of Death 1. But it's not a Bruce Lee movie. No. It's definitely not a Bruce Lee movie. They cut back and forth to a couple of scenes of Bruce Lee talking to this Shaolin master about some stuff, and they show, I think, a couple of images from Bruce Lee as a kid, but it's like a teenager Bruce Lee with his family from something else that might have actually been like from home videotapes. So it wasn't even acting stuff. And they cut that in. And then they also, like I said, they used some clips from, I think, Fist of Fury as well. Because there's images of what was the Chen Zhen character running after the casket of his master that died. And they raise it up in a helicopter. And then Chen Zhen slams into the ground after falling to his death. So then his younger brother has to go investigate why the master's coffin is being stolen with the remains, and then it goes to this castle of death, and he tries to make friends with one of the other martial artists that works around the tower and stuff like that, and he's trying to investigate where the body went and why his master died still. And it's a really weird story, and they're really stretching to fit any sort of semblance to Bruce Lee's character from Game of Death 1 and Fist of Fury. They're like mashing that shit into 2. I don't know. But honestly, the fights in this are pretty good. The person that's supposed to be Bruce Lee in this is actually pretty good. Billy Lowe, and then his younger brother Bobby Lowe investigates the thing that's going on. But the final fight scene between I think Bobby Lowe and the end villain is really cool, and the way he finds his way into the castle is neat. But yeah, this is a pretty weird storyline, and how they try to force Bruce Lee's character into there by doing flashbacks and stuff. Yeah, it's just really weird, but honestly, it's a better film than Game of Death 1, so here we are. Alright, the last actual Bruce Lee movie in my Bruce Lee collection is, of course, Enter the Dragon. I saw this first when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. My dad liked some action martial arts films. This was one that I seen. This album cover is pretty interesting. It's probably pretty close to the original, if not the original artwork. Let me know in the comments section if I'm wrong. Pretty basic DVD disc, Blu-ray. This one is one that I saw, I think, once or twice when I was young, and I've completely forgotten what it was like, so I had to get a DVD copy of it myself and rewatch it again. And rewatching it, it was pretty good. It wasn't as good as I remember from as a kid, but it's definitely, in my opinion, Bruce Lee's third best film. Again, Fist of Fury being the best, and then Big Boss, and then this. I totally didn't remember him being a secret agent or working with the FBI or the cops or whatever to infiltrate this tournament to take down this mafia boss or triad boss or whatever this boss is supposed to be. I didn't remember that part, so that was kind of neat to kind of be like, oh, that's why he even goes to the tournament in the first place. And everyone knows it's got like crazy other martial artists in it, and and John Saxon, who's not really a martial artist, he's just a kind of a movie star. Bob Wall, rest in peace, he passed away recently. And I think Jim Kelly and Shi Qian are kind of big names in the martial arts world, but I can't remember. Either way, it was a neat film. It was cool to see the tournament play out and Bruce Lee fight against Bob Wall, obviously, and the other contestants, and that huge ripped dude from Bloodsport that I'm blanking on the name, and I wish I remembered it, but I don't. So it was cool to see him fight that giant character as well. And then the end fight with the mirrors and the boss with the like clawed hand is infamous. So that's neat. I don't really have much to say. It's Bruce Lee. If you're a fan of Bruce Lee, you enjoy the shit out of this movie. You probably have the box set or a box set, or already have all the movies already if you're a huge fan of Bruce Lee. So I don't probably need to say too much except just to cover it and my thoughts on the movie and a little bit of the details of the plot. So yeah, and he uses his nunchucks in this, of course, which at this moment in my martial arts journey, I still find nunchucks to be ridiculous, and unless you're like a master of the nunchucks, they're probably going to be useless to you and or illegal in your country, state, or province. So yeah, I'm not a fan of nunchucks. Maybe that'll change when I get better and my martial arts journey continues, but at this moment I think nunchucks are silly. You might as well just have some Kali sticks or whatever they're called, or some tonfas, or a bow staff, something that doesn't have recoil when you hit something. Much more effective in my opinion. But yeah, classic Enter the Dragon Bruce Lee film. Alright, and the last film in this that's sort of Bruce Lee, but not Bruce Lee because he doesn't actually act in it, that is Dragon, the Bruce Lee Story, which I also saw as a kid. I feel like I enjoyed this way more than Enter the Dragon, way more than Way of the Dragon, and obviously way more than any of the Game of Deaths. This is really cool. No, it's not Brandon Lee that's representing his father in this. It's a totally different actor. I'm sure when I was young I thought it was probably Brandon Lee because I'm a dumb white person and I can't tell the difference sometimes between actors. But yeah, it's not Brandon Lee, but who does it does a really great their own take on Bruce Lee, and they make the story really cool and dynamic, and there's some funny parts and the dude's ripped, so it's nice. And Lauren Holly from Dumb and Dumber does make a pretty good Linda Lee in this, but I feel like the Linda Lee that's in Legend of Bruce Lee on Netflix is definitely a more attractive Linda Lee. But yeah, Jason Scott Lee does a really good job at portraying Bruce Lee in this. Lee's a very common Oriental name, so no relation there, but I figured I'd mention it if you didn't know. This is probably my favorite film interpretation of Bruce Lee's legacy and story based on his life. The Legend of Bruce Lee, the Chinese TV series, being my favorite TV series representation, although I feel like a lot could be cut out and they could have edited it down a bit. But I'm glad to have at least seen the whole long kind of drawn out version, so I know all the like more intricate smaller details of his life. It definitely adds more to Bruce Lee as a person and gives it a little bit more insights to what he dealt with growing up and making his legacy. But yeah, if you don't have Dragon, the Bruce Lee Story, and you like Bruce Lee, you are missing out on a really cool interpretation and kind of summary of his life's events. Definitely like the scene of him involved in the Green Hornet series better in this one than in the TV series, just because they actually had a little bit more rights to the Green Hornet character, I feel like, and could represent it properly in this one, as opposed to the TV series. But yeah, so that's cool. Glad to have that. Definitely check it out if you haven't for whatever reason. I'll hopefully edit this down to less than a half an hour long. if this channel is even allowed to have longer than half-an-hour videos. But yep, that's my first installment. Hopefully the next installments will be a little bit better, and I'll be a little bit more concise, and we won't have to spend time doing some house cleaning about the background and stuff like that. So anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this, and stick around for more in the future. Cheers, and thanks for watching the Sharp Hand Path. Get out there, keep training, because if you only train in the dojo, you won't progress as fast. Nashin and Shay Shay.
We should run. We should hide. We should kick their butts.